Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Oosman Bashir from Outclass. Welcome to the second session. And we're going to have two experts join us in a minute. I'll just start really quick with introducing this program. This is meant to support parents in Pakistan. A lot of you have reached out with questions about admissions, about selecting O-level subjects, and so forth. And we've started this. Ali explained it well in the last session. If you missed that, it's posted on our website. He calls it the King's kind of webinars, which is, it sounds regal, but it's meant to say we want to share information that otherwise is kind of restricted to people who are already in these kind of circles where people have gone abroad, but we want it to be accessible to as many people as possible. In a second, we'll be introducing our guests. Let me just make sure everything is working all right. Give me just a minute. And I see some parents joining in already. All right, I think we're ready and we have our guests here. Let me introduce them really quick. So first is Saad Sahil. He is a UPenn alumnus and a serial entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in educational ventures. Saad, thank you so much for joining us. There you are. All right, for a second, I wasn't sure if you're here. It's my first time kind of on this platform, but thank you so much for joining.
Of course, happy to be here.
Awesome. And our second guest, actually, a personal connection here as well, because used to be, well, at some point, I've definitely learned English from her. Dr. Naila Burney now used to be, well, we used to call you madam. I won't call you ma'am. We'll call you doctor now because you've got a PhD. But one of the most beloved teachers at Aitchison, and is now head of college and career counseling. That's right? Amazing.
Yes, except the US admissions, but yes, the rest of it, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, maybe, I'll say a little bit, just so it's not too embarrassing for you guys to kind of, speak about yourselves. Let me say a little bit more, but we're so excited to have you. And we've had parents submit questions in advance. So we can go one by one. But then we'll also open up to questions sort of live from the audience. But thank you for doing this. So for the guests, I'll say a little bit more about Saad. He is an education entrepreneur. I think that's the best description. You've trained and supported, thousands of teachers. I think and students. I think the numbers well over 250,000 now students.
For the students, yes.
Which is amazing. I know you went recently to do a master's in education from UPenn, but already had a LUMS MBA. And, so tons of experience there that we'll draw on. And Dr. Naila. Sorry, did you say?
Naila. No, it's fine, Naila. I'd be more
ma'am. Okay, always ma'am for me. And I remember you helped me a lot with debates as well. So hopefully I will try to make you proud of, how far I've come in terms of hosting and speaking. But I know you taught English literature at Aitchison for a decade and then went and got a PhD in educational leadership from Trinity College in Dublin. And to the delight of all of us, Aitchisonians, current and past, you've come back to Aitchison. So that, which is fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, Beta. Thanks.
All right. So maybe let's jump into questions. We'll go one by one. The first one's for Ma'am Naila. The parent sent this in. My child is confused between selecting science and business subjects. How should we think about this?
All right. So correct me if I'm wrong. This is students who've taken their O levels, or they're taking their they're in the first or second year of O levels.
I think O levels. I think most of this session is how should people, in their O and A levels navigate the decisions, but also most people are asking in terms of how it affects admissions. So if it's a, means to an end, how should they be thinking about this?
So it's very, very important. It's a very difficult decision and a very important one at this point in time, particularly. Starting their O levels again, this is critical that they go in, they have discussions with their counselors about subject selection. This is a difficult one and a very important one. I'll keep on saying that because for children, and particularly these days, I feel that there's so much confusion in young people now than it was before. I felt my old students, you guys, that I'd worked with before, there was greater clarity. I won't say they were absolutely clear about what you wanted to do ahead of, at university, but these days, again, I feel there's more confusion. Parents seem slightly more confused as well. For a question such as this, that, selecting between science and courses that deal with business or management, it's not a difficult one. You'll see, and particularly as parents, you see your child, from junior school going on, prep school, senior school, when we talk about Aitchison or any other school for that matter, children will show you, their aptitude, their interest. If they're interested in science subjects, you'll see that. And as parents, it's very important that you encourage them along those lines. I've had to deal with, parents and children, who jump in, they say, yes, sciences is what, is the way forward, that it's so important that children should study all three, physical sciences there, and they go for computer science as well. But when you talk to the children, when you talk to the students, you realize that that's not what they want to actually pursue, that they're more interested in humanities, that they're more interested in studying history, for example. So for parents, again, it's very important for them to sit down with their child. I mean, that has to be the first step forward. Anytime when I start working with children, whether in their O levels or in A1, my first thing is, bete, go home, sit with your parents. And this is, again, going to be a discussion when it's time for them to decide whether they want to go abroad or they want to study here. Again, the first people they need to sit with are their parents. Likewise, with O-level students, subject selection, there is so much imposition on children these days. There's so much of pressure that, no, it's important that you do sciences. Absolutely. O-level will be probably the first and the last time that some children are going to be studying the three sciences for the first, possibly for the last time. So if they have an aptitude for the science, if they are interested in science, absolutely go for it. They like bio, they like chemistry, they like physics. They might not want to study it, in A-levels or even at university. But if they're good at it and they like sciences, they should study them. So O-levels, they should take it. That's a no-brainer. But then we have, students, someone like me, who's not scientifically minded, and you push me into, studying all three sciences, I'd flunk at that level. And it's going to be so much of pressure that I'm being forced into an area of study that does not appeal to me. That is not me. I don't want to go towards that side. I want to start. So it's a discussion that parents need to have with their children. And as early as, I would say, first year of O-levels is already a little bit late for that kind of conversation. Even when a child is in 6, 7, 8, and even earlier than that. But then with math, again, people who are good with children who are good with numbers, they'll show that. You'll see it, the passion and the excitement that the child will have when they're working with mathematical problems and all of that. Parents should be able to see that. So observe your child, have a conversation with your child, and you'll understand. Let them speak. And outside pressures, so-and-so, this person is doing this, and, all those pressures will always be there. And those pressures are, I feel that they're more now, and they're playing a major role now than they did before. I've had parents, when I was teaching long time back, the parents came in and they asked me that, so our son would talk to you. So what would you advise? Even as a teacher, So it's important that you listen to your child and then make a decision. If sciences is not the way forward for your kid, if he or she's not interested, don't push them in that direction. That's, what I feel. Let's see what Saad has to say about that.
Yeah, Saad, if you want to add to that, also, I guess, like trying to link it with admissions, I think there's this notion that, whether it's linked to end results, let's work backwards from, hey, if the higher paying jobs happen to be in computer science and engineering, then kind of forcing your child to pursue that versus I think what Ma'am Naila was saying, which is actually going the other way, like what is the child interested in, and pursuing that.
I think I absolutely agree with her. Just as soon as you force a child to do something, they start feeling that their learning, their education is for you as the parents and not for themselves. So when they feel like that, then every day is a struggle. They go into the class, they don't want to study. They look at the books, they're like, why am I doing this? It's just a constant struggle for the first 3 years of O levels, and A levels maybe they usually take the same subjects. So if there's an open conversation, there's a candid conversation that this is something that I can do, this is something I don't want to do, it always makes life easier. But just to add a little bit more to that, it sirf decide karna kafi nahi hai between themselves. Let them experience it as well. So in the O levels, when you're starting out your classes, usually schools give you a chance to try out sciences. So you should go in and try them out. आप साइंसेस भी ट्राई करें, आप बिजनेस भी ट्राई करें, आप कंप्यूटर साइंसेस भी ट्राई करें, ट्राई आउट एवरीथिंग एंड देन यू कैन डिसाइड. So then you'll have a much better idea that this is something that I wanted to do, this is what my parents want to do, and I've tried all of the subjects and I know what the course outline is, I know what the teacher is like, and so it gives you a much better idea of how to make that decision.
I think that's great.
And
that resonates a lot with me, and I would take it a step forward, because another question we get is around internships and, hey, how do I, it's again more means to an end, like, oh, if I write this on a resume, will I get admitted? And I think so my dad wanted me to be a corporate lawyer, and thankfully one of the summers in my O levels or just before A levels, he asked one of his lawyer friends if I could shadow them, just unpaid internship, but just spent the summer in their law firm, just looking at what it actually is versus our notion of, Harvey Specter from Suits is what corporate law probably is, versus the grunt work. And it took all of 1 week for me to say, you could not pay me enough to correct commas and, mark it in red in these, documents for the rest of my life. But that's just me. Someone else could have said, I love this, right? And I think it goes to what you guys just said in terms of, I think that 1 week of shadowing, is the best investment ever, instead of paying for a law degree, doing the bar. And I have friends who 6 years into that journey say, actually, I don't really like this job, so I'm going to switch. Let me ask a second question. This one's, maybe we'll start with Saad. What are some of the emerging career paths in higher education that parents might not be aware of, and what can be done during O levels to kind of prepare for those opportunities?
That's a very interesting question. Recently, most of the people have now heard of ChatGPT, hopefully, and how AI is coming in, and it's revolutionizing how people work in different industries. So I think emerging careers, and they'll be very much impacted by AI. So things like prompt engineer, how do you write the right prompts while you're inputting data into AI? How something like a machines team manager, so where you're talking about the interaction between how machines work and how people work, and how to bring them both together. How to build AI into smart cities. So it's going to be related to AI. But one thing that I would say, how O-level students can prepare for this is that is going to be there. So now they have to prepare for skills that AI cannot take over, or machines cannot take over. So things like creativity, collaboration, communication, and stop focusing on rote memorization. You have to do some of it for your exams, but most of it is easily available at your fingertip. So you focus on things that are not easily replicable. And if you can learn innovation, if you can learn entrepreneurship at a very early age, that's always going to be helpful for you. And one thing that AI cannot do right now, and it might never be able to do, is tell the difference between right and wrong. So if you are able to do that, I think you've got a head start of in any career that you go into.
Ma'am, do you want to add anything to that?
No, a little too technical for me. I won't be able to talk about the AI side of it, but I agree with what Saad has said, that the personal, skills that you can actually develop collaboration, working, creatively, coming up with innovative ideas and all, that's always a plus. So it's how you develop those skills. One thing I'd add again, futuristic talk, when we talk about, what sort of professions will be more popular as we go on and all of that. My stance is always that, there might be some professions, what you said as well, that there might be some people be really good at a particular profession, but that does not necessarily mean that your child should actually go on that path just because. I get so many parents who come in and they talk about, well, his mamu, he's done this, and his chacha has done this. Now, that is all very good. Having mentors, having people to look up to is a good thing, but that should not be the yardstick through which you actually measure your own child's potential. So the focus needs to be on the child. And sadly, I feel now more than ever that's not the case. The children are being assessed, keeping other people in view, and that to me is quite problematic. Anyway, so.
No, thank you for that. Maybe just a related topic, but kind of building up to a common question we're getting is, when and how should parents start thinking about the college application journey? Mixed opinions, but maybe starting with Ma'am Naila first.
Yeah. So the question again ended with, what is it? What is actually needed? That should we start with the college list? Should we start with talking to parents? Do we start talking to seniors? Or is it something else? And my response to that will be, that's something else. And that something else is actually your child. The thing is that it's, again, as I said, it's very easy to look around. And in this day and age, there's so much accessibility to, the whole world on the phone that, so-and-so is doing so much of work in this particular area and all of that. But in all of that discussion and all of that looking around, we tend to miss out on the most important person. That's your child there. So that's something else that, we can talk about will be that you need to give space and time and opportunities. As what you said, you had a week of shadowing with a corporate lawyer and that just told you, and which is what I encourage. The sooner the children come in with their parents, and I'm not saying, okay, send your child to shadow a cardiologist when he's, and there are parents who do that as well when he's in grade 4 or 5. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, well, when they're in their early years of O-levels, maybe, that's the right time to actually give them that sort of opportunity, let them explore. And what Saad said that, there's no harm, and I agree with that if a child is good with sciences, it's very important that they do study those 3 sciences in their O-levels, only if they're scientifically minded. And then explore those areas, give them opportunities to grow on their own and explore and find, what sort of, so starting with the college list is never going to be my thing. And again, there'd be people who would not agree with that. But for me, again, college application, that is the last step. Building up to that point where you build yourself up in such a way that okay, fine, because I've done this, in a very natural transition over my O-level period and my early, in my early A1 time. So I have naturally evolved into this person who's interested in this particular area. And that natural transition is going to help you choose wisely as well. So the discussion about colleges, where, the discussion starts with, I get parents, KG, and when I was working with US admissions, obviously the conversation started with the IVs. And even then, and more so now than even then, I was always of the opinion that please look at your child. Is he or she really in that space, in that place that he'd be able to go and survive in that environment? Are we pushing them a little too much? So that discussion needs to be on the page, and it's usually not there. So it's very important that we have that discussion. Yes, the first thing that we need to do, as I said in the previous question as well, that sit your child down, talk to them, give them the space to grow and explore. And when that is done, if you do that right, then the college selection, the course selection, selecting which country you're going to go send your child to, all of that will systematically fall into place. No issues are going to come in. What happens is, because the child does not have clarity, parents are confused, they get worried, they get anxious, and they're like, he doesn't know anything. So we'll make a decision for him. And in doing that, again, the decision is made. This is the course you're going to study. This is what you're going to do. This is where you're going to go. And with the result, Kitty, the child comes in, madam, I'll be applying to Canada, US, UK, and somewhere else in Europe as well. And for me, that is problematic because that takes you away from where exactly you should actually be aiming for, what you should be aiming for, which place you should be aiming for. And in most cases, what you said, after a while, maybe a year, 2 years into it, or even worse, graduating and then realizing, oh my God, what have I done? देखो worse तो वो भी नहीं है. Even after 4 years of university, you can still go and do another degree. So this world is, the craziness, crazy things happening in this world, but there's a lot of good as well. That there's so much flexibility now that it's good in that sense as well. But the earlier we understand it, the earlier as parents we make the right choices. So please don't start with the college list. The college list can wait. But yes, there are times when a child can come in and say, madam, and genuinely interested, okay, madam, this is the place that I have worked for the last 6 years. I know that, for example, if it's Cambridge and I want to apply for land economy, and this is the requirements that they've had, and I have actually worked with one particular company, and I've had that case, where a student came in and he'd been working with one particular company for about 2 or 3 years, and he'd evolved in such a way. He was a very smart kid and had all the right answers and had the right body language and the certain type of student that Cambridge was looking for, and he got in, alhamdulillah. But he'd developed himself in that manner. So if you get someone like that, yes, you sit them down, and yes, you work on 100% that yes, you are sort of prepared, and let's do the right work. But if a child comes in a week, 10 days, or maybe even a month before the deadline and say, okay, Cambridge is my dream school. No, it's not. So you need to, again, and as parents, again, that's so important. And it kills me, it breaks my heart talking to parents, so trying to convince them that this is not the right choice for the child. It doesn't make me feel any better, but it's the right kind of a discussion that I need to have with the parents. At times, I'm able to convince them. Others, I just go with them just because the grade is there. They expect O levels, they have all A stars. That is not the criteria. And same, Saad will actually shed more light on that with the US admissions, the time that I did spend with US admissions. Same thing. You have the grades, but there's so much more that the universities are looking for. Likewise, with UK admissions or Canadian universities, that's what we're looking for. So no, we don't start with the college list. We start with the most important person, which is your child. Discuss, give them space, let them grow. I know it seems like a tall order, but well, that has to be done. Children come in, madam, but there's so many subjects, we have to work on this, that, and everything. Well, this is the life that you've chosen for yourself in the sense that you're aiming for, some top schools there. Well, this is the time to begin. Your O-levels may, if you can't take that load, then how would you, UPenn, Dartmouth, Columbia, Harvard, what are you going to do when you're there? So they need to understand that.
I'm going to double back to this workload and kind of ambition versus expectations kind of question a bit, but was going to ask Saad, you might have a completely different view. By the way, these sessions are meant to kind of, it's not prescriptive. I agree with that kind of, starting from, well, here is the US news, top 10 college list. So that, clearly this is my list, isn't maybe the best advice for everyone. But, what would you add to what Ma'am Naila said?
I think I'm more inclined towards her, where I think that before getting to a college list, you have to know what your strengths are. So I think the beauty of today is that you can find these nuanced programs there where there are interactions or combinations that did not exist before. For example, the program that I did, Education Entrepreneurship, it's the only one in the world. I think Africa mein kisi jagah pe kisi ne shuru kiya, but it's UPenn is the only one that does it. Jab mujhe pata tha ki this is what I wanted, it was, and I was focused. This is the only program that I applied to. It made my life so much easier. That this is what I want. This is what my profile is. This is what I'm interested in. And then then you start having that conversation with that university. Universities are looking for someone who's genuine, right? They want to know that this is a person who's actually interested in this degree. They're going to work in this field in the future, and we want to support those students. जब आप अब सारी जगहों पे अप्लाई करना शुरू कर देते हैं, you don't really have a focus. You don't even have a country focus. Studying in the US is very different than studying in the UK or going to Australia. But as for Pakistani parents, like हमारा बच्चा बाहर चला गया, but बाहर जाके भी इतना सारी variety है कि why do you want to send him outside? You know, why? You want to get him a better education. So, but you know, किसी भी university में जाना idea नहीं है. The idea is to get into a university where that is the best for your child.
Yeah.
And जो वो program करना चाहता है, जो subjects वो पढ़ना चाहता है, they have to be, you know, linked to, you know, what the future goals are, what the future career is.
Awesome. I'm going to combine with a couple of questions with a similar theme. In the interest of time, I'm going to combine a couple for you, Saad. They're all around. So one is, you know, kind of extra subjects, the O levels. I remember, sad to admit, but it was my batch where we had on Ahmed Agha, and like it went from used to be, Ma'am Naila knows this batch. It used to be kind of Mansoor, we had done 10 A's, and everyone was like, oh my God, 10, and then on came out and it 14. And so I apologize to all future batches, but you know, this whole extra subjects in O levels and then internships and what's the significance. So we have a couple of questions, I guess, around how to spread your time and effort amongst kind of choices of extra subjects, co-curriculars, you know, and all with the lens of what do you think helps with admissions the most?
Saad,
yeah. Let's start with you this
time. As far as extra subjects are concerned, once you've, you know, experienced all the subjects and you've made a choice that maine sciences karni hai, but still the student is like, you know, I still want to learn English literature. I still want to learn, you know, computer science. Let them do it. If they want to do it, let them do it. So for me, in my case, I was like, I want to take the minimum subjects possible to pass. I'm not interested in, you know, overburdening myself. I have other things to do in my life.
Yeah.
But, you know, my English literature teacher, he was like, nope, you're not, I'm not. She was my English teacher and then she became an English literature teacher. He was like, nope, you have to take literature. I was like, no, I don't want to. I want to have an easier life. I don't want to take a 9th subject. He was like, no, but you have to. And I guess she forced me. And, you know, I've always gained from that because I really, really wanted to do it, but I just didn't want the pressure. I always loved, you know, studying English literature. And so I took it, and it was, you know, it's always been helpful because I wanted to do it. That did not feel like an extra subject to me. That just felt like, oh, I have to read a novel. Great. I'm already doing it. So, you know, it always adds to it. And I would take the same thing forward for internships and extracurriculars. Do things that you want to do. Do things that you want to do in the future. Similar to Usman, I think I started internships very early as well. In grade 9, I had my first internship. And then, you know, again in grade 10, 11, in my O levels, in my A levels, in my undergrad, in my master's, I always, you know, 15, 16 different organizations I did my internship in. And that always helped. It gave me a clear idea. Is this an industry I want to work in? Is this a function that I want to work in? And so, you know, it helped me build skills that, you know, normally people don't have. So, you know, I can do HR, I can do finance, I can do management because I've actually done it while doing those internships. And initially internships were, you know, paper pushing where, oh, you count these letterheads that you have, or, you know, just do the stock taking, things that people did not want to do. But once you do it long enough, you know, you're actually a valuable member for them. They actually start giving you work because you can't take on that responsibility. And, you know, it gave me access to work in local companies, multinational companies, you know, that you have that experience. You can actually go outside Pakistan to do internships. I actually went to Sri Lanka to do an internship when I was in my O levels. So, you know, it brings, you know, a good variety and a flavor to you. And if you're genuinely interested in what you're doing, same as with extracurriculars, you know, it always helps in the college admissions.
Okay, I hear you, and I feel like there's a lot of consensus here. So as Ma'am Naila used to teach me back in the day, I'm going to take the other side. Hopefully it enriches the discussion. But, you know, everything you're saying sounds great. But then there are, you know, parents who think kids are never going to love spinach, but you need it. And so kind of, you know, yes, you could let the child say, actually, I'm lazy. I just want to do 4 subjects. But as a parent, you think they should be pushing themselves more. And so I guess where's that balance of resonate with what you said, but, you know, if the child is going to later regret, you know, why didn't you push me more? Of course, I was going to say 5 subjects is enough. Where's that balance of how much to push the child?
Me? Do I answer
Yes.
this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Oosman. Now, this is, again, if you remember, again, my stance at that point in time as well, when you guys were studying, and it's been the same. Look, the thing is, universities, and you'd second me on that one, universities want 6 to 7, and 7 is a big number, IGCSEs, O-levels. They're okay with 6 IGCSEs as long as you have the core subjects there, right? Since we're talking about O-level subjects here. We do, so in our school, again, there are 8 that we ask students to do, and then they can do a 9th subject as well. So through the school, they can do 9 subjects. If you ask me, 9 is a brilliant number. And why? Because so if a student ends up with physics, chem, bio, and does add maths because he's really good with maths, so he does add maths, he has math, he has English, he does the 9 subjects there. I think there's variety there. There's language, there is both English and Urdu languages there. There is mathematics, 2 types of mathematics. You could do add maths, you could do computer science, you could even do economics for that matter in O-level. So the variety can come in even in 9 subjects. I've worked with one particular student who joined in H1. Obviously, we're not taking names, but he joined in H1, came from another school. He had, I think, about 20, 21 O-levels, but not in one go, mind you. There were 6 or 7 transcripts that he had. And the main transcript that he had, where the English language, Urdu language, and math, and all those subjects were there were a couple of Bs there as well. Now, B is a brilliant grade, don't take me wrong. But in this day and age where we are working with the competition that we are dealing with, that brings your chances down. So, oh God, he has 2 Bs, so that's not a good thing. My problem with that kid, he was a brilliant kid, very nice, would come in, but he was totally, utterly confused. You see, the bad side to this whole issue, you can, yes, say that why not give them the opportunity to explore and look at all the different options they have. Look, the thing is, and this is just one case I'm talking about, there have been many others. It leads them to a lot of confusion. When I sat with the parents and I asked them, they said it was better than him doing nothing, or it was better than, but look, I said it's backfired. What Saad just said, Kitty, interning, researching, studying, that's a better way forward, because that's something you can do, in the luxury of your home. You don't have to take an exam for it. You don't have that added pressure, and you end up in a better space because you're clear about exactly where you're headed. You didn't have to take exams for whatever you were studying and all. That's removing that pressure. And I agree with what Saad said. Fine, if you study a subject that is not really a study for you, it's enjoyable, and you go take an exam and it's okay, it doesn't overburden you, fine. But I have never, and I will never agree with the fact that the more subjects you have, it's more burden, believe me. So I would advise always that go with a certain select number of subjects, particularly if you're with a school, follow what the school's policy is with the criteria they're following and all of that. And don't overburden your child. What you should actually be focusing on, and what the world, where we stand now with these universities, and not just UK, it's US as well. I was working with one student, perfect candidate for Oxford. So he wanted to apply to Oxford, long story, so I won't get into that. But, we worked on a lot of research. So what he wanted to do, we were researching that. So I got him, helped him with getting papers, journal articles, and this, that, and everything. He came, so he got into Stanford eventually. He got into Stanford, went there, mashallah. And he came back and he said, that research bit that, you helped me develop, and I grew in that, and that really helped. And Stanford appreciated the fact that I had researched that particular area. So we're in a different world now. Doing 20 subjects, 25 subjects, that's really out the window. And maybe that first year when there was this chap from Islamabad, I've forgotten, you were in Ireland then, but I remember I was like, oh my God. So there we go. He ended up doing, in one go, he ended up with, I think, about 20, 25 subjects, O-levels. He did it in one go, got all A stars, A's. And I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? And what happened was that this trend started. And maybe for a couple of years, universities were really thrilled. Wow, but now universities have wisened up as well. They're looking for depth. When you spread yourself too thin, and not everyone can do that. Issue is, KG, we tend to just, start following this rat race. And we think just because, so-and-so has done it, we'll be able to do it as well. It doesn't work that way. Understand yourself, find your purpose. It's so important. All right. So number of subjects, I've never supported that. I will never support it. You might not like it, but that's it.
No, I agree. I think you're right. We get this question a lot as well about what to write in an essay. And I feel like, again, you're asking the question from the wrong end, right? If you had genuinely developed a passion and then pursued it, you would know to write about it and say like, oh, the most fun I've had was last summer doing this, working at this lab. And so I resonate with that. I rather kind of, inch wide and mile deep versus the other way around.
And Oosman, sorry. Yeah. Oosman, just to add on to that, the thing is that most US universities will be interviewing, Oxford, Cambridge will interview. Even if you're able to, sort of display it on the application, on the paper that, yes, you've done all that work, the minute you start talking about it. So if you've actually had that experience and if you've evolved over the years with that particular activity, your responses are going to show that. But what happens is the reason why many students actually fail at the interview, fail is possibly a very strong word, but when they're unable to respond properly is because they're not authentic about what work they've done. They will not be able to show that authenticity during the interview, and that'll always be problematic, both for US, UK, wherever the interviews come in. Interviewers will know it in a second, whether it's on the surface or it's something deeper.
Actual passion. Okay. In the interest of time, I want to switch to kind of questions we've had coming in this stream. We've selected a few, and it kind of connects from what you said before about different boards. So one of the questions is, if my child takes O-levels across different sittings and maybe even different boards, so there's IGCSE, there's EdExcel, does that affect the overall kind of admissions package or decision?
No, I don't think so. Are you asking me? Sorry, Oosman? Yeah.
No, please feel free to jump in. I feel like you've maybe got this question at Aitchison before, but Saad, also jump in if you'd like.
No, there won't be any issue as such. And IGCSE O-levels, there's still Cambridge, the Cambridge board. So it doesn't really, or if it's EdExcel, if that will not make a huge difference there as far as admissions are concerned. Local admissions, again, when you go to the IBCC website, that's a big one. And local admissions have actually gained greater prominence over the last 4 or 5 years, because I feel that the parents are now more inclined towards, following, the undergrad stream here in Pakistan and then going for a master's. There are loads of parents who started thinking along those lines as well. So not much difference there. I think there was also an idea, Kitty, if my child is studying privately, he takes the O-levels privately and it does not attend school. The only downside to that in my mind will be that the child will not be socializing, will not be with other children of his or her age. So that, to my mind, obviously we need that kind of holistic development for the child as well. Other than that, as far as admissions are concerned, as long as it's going through the British Council, you're taking the private exam, but it's through the British Council, there won't be any issues as far as admissions are concerned.
Got it. So we had a question around homeschooling specifically as well, like how it works for O-levels. Some people have done it and succeeded, others struggle. Any advice for parents who are considering homeschooling?
So initially, I for my own daughter, I did homeschooling. If you want to do homeschooling, you have to understand what homeschooling is. It's not that कि बच्चे को घर रख लें और जो भी आपके पास चीज़ है उसको पढ़ाना शुरू कर दें. That's not homeschooling. So you have to have a curriculum. You have to have a plan that you're following. You have to tailor it to the child. It's a lot of hard work. But you have to understand that what's important. If parents can do it at home, that the child comes in, does all the subjects privately, that's fine. But as Ms. Naila said, it takes away from a lot of value that you can gain from being in a school. But if you cannot go to a school, in special circumstances, you do your O-levels privately. But you have to get back to the mainstream at some point. You cannot do homeschooling and then you're like, oh, I'll do my O-level privately, I'll do my A-level privately, then I'll do my undergrad privately, and then do my master's privately, and then I do my job privately. That's not how it works. So you have to go back to society at some point. So the earlier you go back to society, the easier it is. But it is difficult. It's not easy for sure.
To my mind, Saad, what you've just sketched out, that's an ideal situation where you do everything privately, you work privately as well. Why not? I'd love to do that. But the thing is, with homeschooling, I respect that. And I, given an opportunity or a chance, because I was working, so that was not a choice for me, for my son. I would have loved to have, had I been at home, I would have loved to have followed that pathway for no other reason, but, where we talk about instilling certain values, and sadly, the sort of situation we are facing in schools around the world, actually. So that's a long discussion that one can have at a later stage, maybe. But there's no, so, parents who are actually doing homeschooling up until their O-levels, it's understandable. With A-levels, the only problem that comes to my mind, parents who might think the A-levels that he can do privately as well, the only issue, and I'm sure there might be ways to combat that as well, that if A-levels, again, you would need a school, because when you start applying, the school's role actually comes in, where teachers are writing recommendations. You need to have that kind of contact as well. Professors, would be interviewing you from the university perspective. They'd want to know what the teachers think about, your responses in class, how disciplined you are. All of those aspects have to be covered. And if you're being homeschooled, I'm sure there will be universities, there'll be spaces who would respect that as well. But I haven't had that opportunity of working with someone who was homeschooled even up until the O-levels. So we've had children who've come in the A1 stream from other schools, but I haven't worked with a child, who was homeschooled. So I haven't had experience with that.
Got it. Super helpful. Maybe one of the quicker ones to answer. We have a question here. Does taking harder additional subjects like AdMath or world history instead of easier ones like commerce provide any, is there a difference in the eyes of, I guess, colleges admissions?
Saad, would you want to take that, or do you want me to respond to it?
I think I'll give it a try, and then you can add on to it.
Okay.
For me, I think taking tough subjects is, you do your bare minimum. That's, what the university criteria is. And then if those extra subjects are adding value to you, then you do them. And then if they add value to your application, doing tough subjects for the sake of doing tough subjects is not, going to help anyone. If you like, if you're doing sciences, but you do commerce and you have a valid reason for doing it, go ahead. But just because, if you like maths and then you're doing AdMaths, great, makes sense. But not because मुश्किल काम करना है, दिल कर रहा है कि नहीं हम किसी को impress करने के लिए. If you want to impress someone, don't take it.
So admissions teams are not impressed that you've done, sort of AdMaths or, further maths in your A-levels, because there is like in the AP equivalent system, you kind of are putting yourself in these different buckets and tiers.
The thing is, with AdMaths, that's a different discussion. Commerce, environmental studies, these subjects, even statistics for that matter. I think when you mentioned he'd taken up statistics, if I'm not wrong, those are subjects, look, you can live without them. Even business studies for that matter, while it's a very good subject, but you don't have to take it as an additional subject because it seems easy. It's not an easy subject. And that's the misconception that's going around. So those subjects, I wouldn't agree to, what Saad said, commerce, unless you have a reason, why would you want to add on? But AdMaths, further mathematics, a totally different discussion. AdMaths, I always encourage any student. My own son, again, he said that I want to take AdMaths. I'm secretly very pleased because I didn't want to push it onto him, but he loved mathematics since his junior school. And we saw that, both my husband and I, that, he was inclined towards mathematics. He'll go into a stream where he'll take that on. But when the O-level time started and he was choosing his subjects, with AdMaths, he said, I want to do it. And I said, look, it's difficult, think about it. And he made that choice. And I was thankful that I didn't push him towards it. So first term, he said, it's tough. I said, it's tough, it's doable, right? And you took it on. And he, alhamdulillah, worked with it. And that's what the reason why I'm talking about this is where a child is good with numbers, encourage them to take AdMaths. That's what I do, because AdMaths would mean A-level math. Further mathematics is taking it a step further. So further mathematics as a fourth subject, absolutely. If the child can, really take it on. And if we're aiming for example, Imperial College is possibly, and I might be wrong, but from my own limited understanding and my knowledge, that Imperial is possibly the only university college that for certain engineering courses are asking for 4 subjects. Whereas 3 is the number, but Imperial says if certain engineering courses, you have to have further mathematics in addition to A-level mathematics. So that's an important one. But again, what Saad said, unless it's a child who's really good with numbers, we wouldn't push them. But yes, from your perspective, universities will definitely, that's a plus, for a child who's managing physics, chem, maths, and further maths, and doing very well in that, and wants to study engineering, for example, or computer science, for example, it'll be a huge plus for him. So as opposed to someone who's doing physics, chem, and math, which is again brilliant, but further math will add on to that value. Okay, only if they're able to handle it. So it's not for every child, it's not for every student, only if they're able to handle that load.
Okay? Got it. Yeah. Ma'am, I feel like you had a stop around, like, are we, because I want to be respectful of your time. Can we take one or two more questions, or?
I don't have an issue, absolutely.
Okay. Saad as well. Okay, great. We have just maybe two more questions from the audience. I'm looking at these now. There's one which feels very kind of personal, but they've asked it anyway. Should my sister take a gap year after her O-levels before starting her A-levels to improve her grades? Okay, I guess that is generalizable in that if you feel your, whoever's appeared in their O-levels didn't do as well as they had expected to, maybe they had higher grades in their mocks, do you think they should take a gap year, improve it, and then move on to A-levels?
Saad, you want to take that?
It's not an easy question because I think it's very personal. Yeah, what's happening. For me, I see is that, you do your O-levels to get into A-levels, and then you do A-levels to get into undergrad if you have a fixed path to go on. But if you've done poorly in your O-levels and then you get into an A-levels program, but you know that you don't want to get into a, your dream school, then you might do it. But the basis for all of that is that you have a plan already. Mostly if you've gotten into an A-level program, I think you're going to be fine. And, normally what people are doing is that they get B's and then they get worried. Oh no, this is, terrible. You need to have all A stars. And as ma'am said, B is still, it's still a good grade. And if you're trying to improve your B's, that's just, something that you're doing it for yourself, not what the next step requires. You don't have a plan for it then. Just we're looking for that A. So, if that's the case, then I think it depends on person to person. But if you're trying to improve your B's and you don't have a plan, then it's not helpful. But if you have a plan and you know that, my dream college needs all A's, I did not get all A's, I have to do it again, I would say then, you do it again. But if that's not your plan, you got B's and some A's, and then you got into A-levels, focus on other things. So from what I've seen in the US, people look at a holistic application and they don't just focus, okay, you have a basket full of A's, next, you're in. It is a holistic admissions process. But, ma'am can have a different view on this.
Yeah, Saad, I do agree with most of what you said, Beta, but the thing is, with the we were talking about, okay, so gap year, when I started about 10, 11 years back, so I was taken aback, a gap year, so I couldn't really get my head around that. Over the years, I realized that this could be a good thing in many ways. I mean, a gap year after their A-levels, some students I've seen, who are brilliant, they've done brilliantly, grade-wise but they want to take a year off. They want to take a year between A-levels and university just to figure out where they're at. Okay? But this particular question where you want to take a gap year after your O-levels because you haven't done well, now it could be taken both ways. Yes, if it's just maybe a couple of B's that you have, the rest are A's, A stars, there's no point taking a gap year. But if, God forbid, someone doesn't do well for one reason or the other, that they've really messed up their O-levels, my advice will be, yes, do take the 1 year, but then the gap year needs to be taken very seriously, that you do everything right to ensure that you get the grades. Because I agree with what Saad said, the holistic application for US as well. However, the grade, and particularly the O-level grade, on which admissions actually come in, on which the conditional offers from UK come in, on which offers are made from Canadian universities as well. So O-level is critical in that way. And even from Pakistani university perspective, where we're looking at getting equivalence, for our O-levels, if we do poorly in our O-levels, then the equivalence, the percentage goes down. And that actually jeopardizes our admission here in the Pakistan universities as well. So my advice will be, yes, if you want to take what Saad said, if you want to take it really seriously, spend that 1 year, remedying whatever you hadn't done before, then yes, go with the gap year. But you have to be very, very careful. We wouldn't want that the child just takes a year off, does nothing, and at the end of the year is still where he or she was, before when they'd started. So yeah.
Got it. There's a question here that I really like because it's actually about Pakistani universities, but I think we can generalize as well. It's how helpful are extracurriculars and sports for admissions in Pakistani universities?
So could I answer that, Saad?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please start.
All right. Acha, Dekho, the thing is, so it's interesting. This year has been the first year. So I'll start with LUMS, for example. Most of our students actually do apply when they're applying to Pakistan. They're applying to certain disciplines. LUMS will be the first choice there. So this has been the first year where some rejections have come in, where students have been told that their personal statement was not up to mark, and this has never happened before. We were always told that they hardly ever look at the personal statement. So they just look at the grades, they look at the SAT scores, they look at the admission test scores, and those are the things that actually decide, they decide whether the child is capable or not. This year, they're really looking into the application. They're looking into the teacher recommendations, all right? So, sorry, I haven't forgotten your question, Oosman, about the extracurricular activities. The same thing again, where I've had students who've come back and they said, Madam, I did this activity in prep school as well. Can I add that? I haven't done much in the senior school. So, we've had students who've added activities that they've done about 5-6 years back as well, just to, add on to their application. Co-curriculars are important, but only to a certain extent. This is coming from admission officers. If we're talking about LUMS again, in particular, we've had meetings with admission officers, and according to them, so the SSC engineering school and the business school, these two schools in particular, look at the academic side. They look at the grades, they look at the SAT scores, they look at the admission scores. Those are the main things that they will look at, and if needed, they might go and look at the rest of the application. But for humanities, social sciences, law, education, these schools, again, they will look at the holistic application, right? So obviously, in that case, in some cases, activities will be reviewed. And with Khan, for example, one really important one, because Khan for medical students, from Pakistan, the ones who are really serious, that will always be the first choice. Sports plays a that will play a very, very important role. Co-curricular is important, but sporting activities, if you're really good in sports, and I've seen that over the years, they really consider that as a huge plus from a student who's applying to our fund. And I have seen over the years, again, if I take a couple of names, because Umair Shakil, a really student very close to my heart, and Zakaria, and these were all people who were so studious and just about grades and studying and all of that. I would never imagine them on the sports field. And they went to Khan, and one is running the marathons, the other one is going hiking, trekking, and another one who's riding all over the world. So Khan does that for you because they're mindful of the physical importance of physical health and mental health as well. So both those things. So yes, Pakistani universities in that sense. However, LUMS, NUST, FAST, for example, GIK, they will look at your co-curriculars, but the main thrust will be on grades, on the academic side.
Got it. I'll generalize and say, in general, UK universities are similar. I've helped people, including my sister, with the Oxford application, Cambridge. It is quite literally, tell us what you want to study, tell us how you are qualified to study it, demonstrate how you have. It is very like they couldn't care less what you were doing, in your free time. Whereas in the US, we're getting a lot of questions on sports, right? It's similar advice. So instead of saying I play 7 sports, if you can demonstrate that I have a passion for cricket, I go to this camp 5 a.m. all summer. I made the team. I have now played a county level match. They will understand this is a real passion. And then there's specific schools. If you do the research, if you're a top swimmer, Punjab level, Pakistan level, there's schools with swim scholarships, right? Yeah. So it's about finding the right fit for your passion. I'll maybe take one last question. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time. I'm enjoying the question as well. maybe a last one. We've done the gap year. This is again, I think we've answered this, but it was around, can my child take both science and business subjects in O levels? I think what we've said was maybe explore earlier what their interest is, but if they still haven't figured out into your O levels, I'd say sure, right? Like take both and see what you gravitate more towards. Would you guys, am I echoing what you said correctly?
Oosman, brother, I'll just give you one small example, and maybe the parents will understand that. The thing is, there is another way to help your child get an experience with other subjects. Adding this pressure of taking an exam. I get so many students who come in O levels saying, "Okay, madam, I'm good with numbers, but I've tried add maths, but it's really going to mess up my math." The way around that is that fine, go with math, go with your 3 sciences, go with 8 subjects and study those, take your exams. And once you're done with your O-level exam, the 3 months that you have after your O-level exam, just do the entire course for add maths, do all the topics, complete them without the pressure of taking an exam. I did a little experiment with my own son, not that I wanted him to study economics in his O-levels, but I knew what was coming ahead in the A-levels. So, and I knew that he didn't want to do medicine. He was very clear. He did study biology because that was his favorite science. And O-levels, I said, since it's your favorite, to parlo, you don't have to do medicine. I'm not going to push you. Nobody's going to push you. So he did the 3 sciences. He did add maths. But what I did was at the start of his the summer vacation, when he was starting grade 9, I got the O-level economics book. And this is very important for parents to understand. This is a very pertinent and a very helpful way to help your child. I got the economics one book, and I said, okay, just go through this, whichever topic you want to read, use it as a reader. And we have a discussion about 10 days time, whichever topic you want to discuss and all. And literally 3 days in, he rushed into the kitchen. I was working there. And he said, okay, Mama, do you know that the such and such thing and this particular thing and this? So he was discussing topics with me, which told me 2 things. One, he understood what was there. And 2, he was excited about it. Now, I just said that, okay, just keep it as a reader. Whenever you feel like it, pick it up, read it over the next 3 years or whatever. What happened was, without me having to push him towards that, it was just an opening for him. When A-level started, obviously bio he was going to drop. He was very clear on that. He himself decided physics, chem, and math. And then he said, I want to take economics as my 4th option. With the result, while math was his favorite subject all those years, economics became his most favorite in A-levels. The reason why I share this example is this is a very personal experience for me, but I've used this to help so many other students there. I've actually had that exercise in my office. Take the economics book, go ahead, see. Economics is a very, very helpful subject. And what you said, should they business studies again, while it's very exciting, it's very interesting, they don't have to do it at O levels if, that's not the focus. Like what Saad said, commerce, if that's not the focus, then there's no point. But if they want to pursue sciences, or if they think economics might be it, then yes, that could be one subject. If they don't want to do add maths, then maybe economics, go with that. So that's been my experience. I would not, and again, my first stance, but if the child is happier doing 8 subjects and can do debates with that, well and good. Let them experience that. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Saad.
Saad, how would you think about this?
I would just add a little bit to what she said, is that rather than giving them a book, you have the internet. Everything is available online. You have, crash courses which cover all of those subjects. Outclass is doing a good job with that. Just take that course. If you're really interested, don't give the exam. I agree with her. It's not.
I'm old-fashioned, so I use the book.
But that's one way to do it. But even if a student doesn't want to buy the book, on the internet, everything is available. Go,
you're right.
Search, study, and if you're actually interested, you'll come back and you'll be excited about it. If you're not, then it's just you just wanted that conversation to happen. You're just doing it for show. If you're really interested in something, right now in the world, there is nothing stopping you from getting that knowledge. The knowledge is in your hand right now.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is
exam for it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The exams, learning for the sake of learning is more important than learning for the sake of exams.
Yeah.
If you want to go for all those extra.
I love that. I think, yeah, just closing thoughts, and I'll hand over the mic to you guys as well for kind of parting advice as we come to an end. But it's funny, the theme for me, and I've been pushing this, in terms of internships, subjects, choices, the common thread is, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, talk to people who've done it, right? Reach out to cousins, reach out to people in the profession. I have people, they go through this A-level stage, then they're at college, now they're recruiting, it's their first job out of college. And it's this exact same thing again for, hey, I should do what the herd is doing. In the US, it used to be investment banking, it became consulting. And without asking, is this the right fit for me? And really, it would just take a couple of conversations with investment bankers to say, what do you like about this job? What do you hate about this job? Spend 20 minutes with them and get a feel for it, instead of actually going through that curve. It feels like in subjects, in terms of co-curriculars, it's the same thing, right? With activities, with sports, we all start that way. You pick up a sport, you're learning. Eventually, you decide if you love it enough to wake up at 5 a.m. and play in the summers or whatever. It's the same thing. So maybe closing thoughts, Saad, anything you wanted to touch on, but we didn't, any general advice?
I think just one thing at this point is that when you're comparing your child to other people, कि जी मामू ने ये किया, चाचू ने ये किया, कि cousin ने ये किया, why don't you, because they're nearby, why don't you get them into a room and talk to them, rather than just comparing someone's experience? Talk to them. What did you learn? Did you enjoy it? What did you enjoy about it? And if they're working, send your child to work with them. Let them spend time with them. So you have your own conceptions कि लोगों का experience क्या है, and without even them being in the room. If you get them in the room, they'll tell you what the reality is. That it was really, really hard work, and I did not enjoy this part of it, or I enjoyed this part of it. So it can actually help make your life easier, rather than just assuming कि उसने ये कर लिया था, देखो वो कहाँ पहुँच गया. There's not just education. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And you'll actually save a lot of time if you get those people into the room to have that conversation with you.
And Naila?
Yeah, and I agreed. Absolutely. We started, I think, on the same note, and I'm all for what Saad just said. Focusing on your child. I think that's the most important thing. There is this, rising trend. Well, it's there. It's actually a trend. It's not rising. It's there. Where parents are setting examples in front of their children that, so-and-so has these many number of A stars, and where are you with that? I think that kind of pressure is so unfair, and it's, I feel it's very, very sad, the situation that we are facing. I've had so many students who walked in literally broken that, I'm doing nothing. I haven't achieved anything. And just to convince those kids that there's always something out there. It's very, very difficult. There was a time when, because we work with Oxford, Cambridge children who are applying to Oxford and Cambridge, and invariably those children will be given slightly more time at the beginning. At the start of my career as a counselor, there was this misconception in the minds of some students, Katie, madam won't work with us because, well, we have C's and D's. And I've had to go back and talk to these kids that, this is the most exciting time for you guys. Even if you have the grades that you have, there's always going to be space for you. We just have to find the right place. Going back to, top schools and all of that, we need to ensure that whatever place we decide for our child, that it's going to be the perfect fit for them, that is going to help them, grow and find themselves, rather than totally lose themselves even before they found themselves. So focus on your child, understand what the child, where he or she is headed and what they're really interested in. And you will be amazed by how they're going to thrive. If they, push forward with a purpose in mind, with a passion in mind, they're going to, do great things. This is from my own experience, having seen so many amazing people who had that focus, who had that passion, and they grew with that. And mashallah, they're doing amazing stuff in the world. So, yeah.
It's funny, as you say that, Salman Tour comes to mind. I remember jab har diwar pe koi na koi uski art lagi hoti hai, I wish I'd stolen some, because he did, pursue his passion, and now you can, good luck at a Christie's auction. So definitely someone who comes to mind was just around us, but, differently kind of talented in a way that was not traditional, at least at Aitchison. but mashallah, incredible how much he's achieved. So
Oh,
awesome. We'll end on that note. I want to thank both of you again for making time. I enjoyed that discussion. I feel like time just flew by. Hopefully that was helpful for parents. Please reach out with more questions. We're going to have more of these sessions, and we compile the questions. And a plug, because we were talking about, I was thinking, giving your child an economics books, plug for Outclass. I've recorded the math course with the sole purpose, if anyone reaches out, it will be completely free. But if you want to, your child doesn't really like pleasure reading, but is more of a Netflix person, we've recorded courses. If you want to see if they have an interest in the subject, please just ask us. We will give you free access. Let them watch a video and see if they want to discuss it after, instead of investing 3 years in an O-level subject, for example. So reach out. We're happy to help. That's why we built this platform. But again, thank you so much, both of you. Enjoyed
Not at all. Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.